With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast here again. Been a little while. How you doing, Matt?
Not bad. Excited to be back after the short vacation. I'm sure the fans are as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot to go over. Lots of news in the last couple weeks.
This one could take a while, so sit back.
Yeah, sit back, crack open a couple beers. You're gonna need it. We got a lot to go over. So let's start off with probably the biggest news. Michael Crabtree tearing his Achilles. Sounds like he's going to obviously miss part of the year, if not all of it. What do you think, Matt? How much do you think he's going to miss? I mean, I know it's a long time before we have to worry about this, and we'll hear a lot more. But what's your first thoughts?
As weird as it is, I swear, I think you texted me like right before this happened. You were so disappointed in it. I know you were expecting some big things from Crabtree this year. I think it sucks for him. I mean, he was really starting to show signs of what he was supposed to be. Coming out of college, being the next best thing since sliced bread. Starting to really put it together, and I was, as you were, on the bandwagon this year. So it's unfortunate. They are saying he's going to make it back, near the end of the year. But for me, he's not going to be a guy I'm drafting. Maybe late in the season, if I'm winning some games and I'm doing well, I'll put him on my roster. Hope I get him for some playoffs. But it's just overall, it's disappointing. But it's football; things happen.
Yeah, he definitely found his groove with Kaepernick in there. He really started to show, why he was such a high pick a couple of years ago in the NFL draft. So where does this put him in your rankings? Where are you gonna? Top 50, top 60 wide receivers. You're gonna knock him out of the top 60.
He's gonna miss at least 6 months. Best case scenario. So
let's say he misses.
Yeah, I'm not drafting him. I'm not drafting him.
You think he misses half the year or more?
Yeah, I'd say probably over half the year. I would say. For me, I'm not touching him. Like I said, he's going to be a guy that if he's on the waiver wire come week 8 and I'm doing well and I can hold a guy on a spot, maybe I'll pick him up for that and hope that he gives me some spark in the playoffs. But he's completely off my board. I'll look into it as we get a little deeper. I haven't really dug in yet to see, but he's fallen huge.
I got to say, I'm always that idiot every year that even though a guy may miss half the year, I always draft him with the intention of holding him until he comes back. And then by week 2 or 3, I get super annoyed with wasting a bench spot on him and end up dropping him anyway. So I don't know why I do that every year, but every year I feel like hey,
if it works out and the season's going well and you got a guy like him sitting on your roster, you're 5-0, 4-1, and you can afford to do that. He's a guy with some big upside when he comes back. He's going to be working hard to come back and try to not miss a beat. So, but for me, I'm leaving him alone. But if you take him in round 13. Who else are you taking there too? So
yeah, you're definitely taking the high ups of guys later on like that anyway. But Jim Harbaugh says that Randy Moss is not an option for them. Who do you think picks up the slack? Is it Bolden? Is it Manningham? AJ Jenkins finally gets some playing time? Does Vernon Davis finally come out of Kaepernick's doghouse? There's some talk about this Ricardo Lockett guy who I really haven't heard too much about, except that I guess he's roommates with Kaepernick and he's a wide receiver for the 49ers, so maybe it's him. What guy do you think benefits the most from Crabtree being gone?
Bolden's going to be that possession-type receiver that Crabtree can really be. Obviously, he doesn't have quite the athleticism anymore that he used to, and he's not going to be able to fill those shoes. Certainly, this is going to be a wide receiver by committee type thing to try to fill those Crabtree shoes. But I'm excited to see Manningham coming back from his knee injury. He took a pay cut this year to stay with the team. They wanted to keep him around, and we'll see what he can do. Jenkins, like you said, he's going to be a guy that's going to get some playing time. Vernon Davis is going to have to be somebody who's looked at more. He's a playmaker in so many regards. And Ricardo Lockett, he's an undrafted, pretty sure an undrafted guy a couple of years ago. He's been cut from a few teams, practice squads in a few different leagues, Seattle.
There's probably nothing there, but just thought I'd bring it up.
Roommate, who knows? Maybe they make some crazy, connection and no homo, I guess I should say. We'll refer to Roy Hibbert with that one. That's not what I meant, but I don't see him being really anything, but you never know.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Bolden benefits the most from this. I think AJ Jenkins might be something along this, the outside that maybe gets a little bit more work now. But I think Bolden's definitely the guy that gets the most added work from this.
I think between Bolden, Davis, Manningham, if he can come back, he's still got some good guys to throw to out there.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that. Where do you think Kaepernick falls in your rankings?
He's going to fall a few spots for me.
Just a few, huh?
Yeah.
See, I'm getting a little nervous now. I had him number 6 this year, and I really liked what he had with Crabtree, and I think he drops out of my top 10 now.
Yeah. I wish I had him with me. I saw some pretty incredible stats, and maybe you know them off the top of your head. Last year, the difference, completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio to receivers not named Crabtree. That does put up some big red flags. I wish I had him with me, but when you saw him, it was like, oh boy, that's a little bit scary. So yeah, if he's falling, sounds like 4 or 5 spots for you. I can definitely see that.
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking probably around 12. Yeah. Probably that borderline starting quarterback for me in 12-team leagues. I think that's where he's going to be for me.
I think he's, like I said, he's going to fall a few spots for me. He can still do so many other things with his legs, and he can make people better.
Yeah, and maybe he finds that connection in the training camp with Bolden or Jenkins or Davis or somebody that really kind of shows that he can do it without Crabtree.
Yep.
Maybe a full season of being a full off season of being able to practice with the number 1 guys. Maybe he starts to develop those connections. But speaking of more injuries, I mean that's pretty much all that really happens, it seems, during these OTAs. Rob Gronkowski, he has a 4th forearm surgery. He's got some back surgery. Adam Schefter reporting that it's minor back surgery and that it's not going to interfere with his arm recovery time. To me, I mean, I don't think there's really such thing as minor back surgery, especially when you had back problems in college. Fantasy Douche out there on Twitter, I think he had the best line that I saw of this. He said, "There's a decent chance that Gronk actually did throw out his back out humping someone's mom." And I thought that was great. I thought that was the best comment about Gronkowski out there. But how do you feel about his injury history? They already lost Welker out in New England. How do you think this affects Gronkowski and Brady?
First of all, Gronk is not going to be banging anybody's mom. He can get whatever the hell he wants. It doesn't go over 25 years old for... Well, okay, I guess MILFs. There's some moms out there at 25.
There's some MILFs.
They're saying that these back injuries are not related to what happened to him in college. I guess it's a back, so if you want to believe that, but it's scary. It's like every time you turn around, you're hearing another injury concern from him, and that was a big reason why he did fall to the 4th round in the draft. So,
yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I had a person in one of my dynasty leagues try to trade me Aaron Hernandez when I already have Gronkowski, and I said, why would I give up stud level players to get Aaron Hernandez when I already have the best tight end in the league? And his reply was, well, the way Gronk's always hurt, you want a quality backup guy. And I said, Hernandez is equally as hurt. That was the worst reason for me to trade for Hernandez in the world. I just couldn't believe that was the reasoning. It was hilarious to me.
It's too bad there's not more talent out of 2 tight ends on any team in the league, but neither one of them, it seems, can stay on the field consistently. Now, I hope he does, though, because Gronk is a rare talent.
If you're drafting today, and I am actually in one of my leagues, I'm actually in a slow draft right now that's going on, where would you feel comfortable drafting Gronkowski? Does this affect your value of him right now?
No, he's still the number 2 tight end for me. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when we went over some of our first rankings. I had Graham ahead of Gronk. And basically, because of the injury concerns, he's still number 2 for me, though.
See, I think I originally had Graham as number 1, but I think even with the injury history, I've actually kind of bumped Gronkowski up to number 1, as crazy as that is. Just because I remember all those weeks that Graham wasn't hurt but was playing last year and still didn't really get the ball from Breeze. And maybe that changes with Sean Payton there. Maybe they go back to that old connection. But Gronkowski has proven year and year over and over again that he gets it done. He gets the touchdowns. Right now, if I'm drafting, this doesn't affect me at all because I think he's going to be fine in time for the season. I think this is all just, there's not a lot going on in the NFL right now, so we all make big deals out of this now, and and make it sound like he's going to miss half the season like Michael Crabtree. But this doesn't affect his value of me at all right now.
Me neither.
It sounds I was gonna say it sounds like you're still, you feel the same way, and got Graham ahead of him a little bit, but you had him before this injury news.
Right.
Speaking of more injury stuff, Arian Foster suffers a calf strain. He's going to sit out the rest of OTAs. They're saying it's not serious. Andre Johnson kind of said, I know Arian Foster, and I know if it's serious, and it doesn't look serious for him. But Ben Tate reportedly looking really, really good from the beat writers. What do you think of Foster and Tate this year? What do you you got the number 2 pick overall. Are you taking Foster? You taking Peterson 1?
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly been a workhorse. He's been a workhorse, no question about it. I think I might have a calf strain right now, so there's plenty of time left in the season. They're going to take it easy with him. He's a guy. He's a veteran in the league. He's proven what he can do. He doesn't have to be participating in these OTAs to the point where you're going to bang him up, because he's a guy that's gotten so many carries over the years that I'm just going to keep him healthy. I know what he can do, and I'm sure Ben Tate is looking good. He always has. I mean, last year obviously was a tough season for him with the injuries. Ben Tate was a guy that had an inside track of starting job 3 years ago or so before injuries in the preseason. So, yeah, I'm sure he is looking good. It's not changing anything for me with Foster or Tate this year. Tate's going to be a great handcuff. He's a guy that if you have Foster, get him, because he's going to really fill the role if Foster goes down. But
I got to tell you, because it sounds like you haven't seen my article yet on Foster, but and I'm putting you on the spot with this. I'll tell you some things that have made me totally change my mind on Foster.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 years...
I've not seen your article. That's awful.
Over the last 3 years, counting postseason, he has averaged over 400 touches a year.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years, just in the postseason, he's had more touches than Darren Sproles had all of last year in the regular season. That's how much work this guy's getting. On top of all that, his yards per carry have gone down each of the last 3 years. His receptions and targets have each gone down over the last 3 years. His yards after contact has gone down each of the last 3 years.
Woo!
Just everything is on this downward...
Should have read your article before I started talking.
It is on a downward spiral of just... You can just see that workload is taking its toll on him. He's getting... he's getting the work. And, if you had him last year, you were okay with that because he was getting the touchdowns. But when yards per carry is going down, yards after contact is going down, the reception the number of targets and number of receptions are going down. Now you're relying on the touchdowns for fantasy value, and that's a little scary. I mean, maybe this is the year that he has the injury. That all that workload brings on you. I mean, we've seen over the last couple of years him have hamstring injuries and be questionable and probable week to week and week. And he does keep playing. I think he's only missed like 1 or 2 games over the last couple of years. But every week he seems to be banged up like Marshawn Lynch was. And I think this might be the year that he kind of takes that drop. And, maybe this year they finally decide to let Ben Tate kind of have a little bit bigger chunk of that pie. And, maybe they start realizing, hey, we make the playoffs every year. We need Foster in the playoffs. Let's give Ben Tate more work during the season when it counts less and save Foster so he's fresh in the postseason. So for me, this injury isn't really that alarming, but once I started sitting down and looking at all of his numbers and what he's done over the last couple of years and that huge workload, I think he's totally prepared for falling off the cliff this year. I had him number 2 in my running back rankings, and I think I'm going to drop him down to like 6 or 7.
Woo! So who's going to be your number 2 now?
My new number 2 is, I think, Jamal Charles. I am all in on this guy. He doesn't have anybody to split the workload with this year. They just came out, I think it was yesterday or today, that said that he's going to be, heavily involved in the passing game. I am all in on Jamal Charles. Think about his offensive line. They tried trading away Brandon Albert. They didn't. They kept him, and they still used a number 1 pick on another tackle.
Right.
So they've improved the offensive line. He doesn't have the backup running back that's going to steal carries from him. And he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game. What's not to like about Jamal Charles this year?
Here's what I think it is. I think it's just the fact that right when I got here today, you showed me what came in the mail, and that was your Jamal Charles autographed helmet you got from the main room.
That's got to be
That's why he's number 2.
I am all in on Jamal Charles. both in real life and fantasy.
You know what?
That's
Hey,
for
you're
sure.
right. You don't have an Arian Foster, so I guess you're backing that up.
I am all in. More guys with injuries, more running backs with injuries. Trent Richardson, he's been battling all sorts of injuries. Last year was the ribs. This year it's been his legs a little bit. But now a source close to Richardson's telling ESPN Cleveland that they're holding him out of camp until August to be extra cautious because they don't want his leg injury to turn into a stress fracture. That's pretty big news to hold a guy out until the middle of training camp. What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on Richardson?
He runs really hard. Yeah, he's a guy that it's like he doesn't know when to take his foot off the pedal. So I think they're just being cautious with him.
Remember last year when that hit he had when he just put his helmet down and just barreled over that guy?
Yeah, he's already come out and said this new rule that he has. He thinks that the NFL has come up with running backs can't put their head down. In easier terms, I guess I would say. He says this was because of him, the way he runs. So, yeah, he runs hard. I think this is just them saying, well, he's really all we have here in Cleveland.
There's a guy out there on Twitter right now, actually I talk to him a lot. His Twitter handle is @TRichRule. Yeah, it's all about the Trent Richardson rule that he calls it.
Yeah, I think it's more a case of them just being cautious. He is their franchise. He's a guy that runs hard. He probably doesn't know that, hey, when I'm hurt a little bit, maybe don't go 100% of practice. So it's early. It's definitely nervous, though. It's something to be nervous about for sure.
I was going to say, I had Richardson last year. I loved everything about him, and I'm expecting a big year out of him this year. But I got to tell you that those, the leg injuries, the rib injuries, it is all starting to kind of add up for me a little bit. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I almost want to dub him the Matthew Stafford of running backs. Where he has all the talent in the world, but those first couple of years just gets dinged up so much that you're like, come on, just be healthy for a full year. I want to see what you can do. But I think it might just take a couple of years for him to be completely healthy and finally get through a year, healthy.
Fred Taylor was like that, when he first came in the league.
Going old school with it. Look at that.
Getting banged up all the time, and then he started to put together some years. Is this making him fall for you? Is this another one where he's kind of?
I don't think he falls for me yet because I think right now he's being undervalued. So I don't think he falls for me. I mean, I think mentally he might have fallen for me a little bit. But I think I'm still drafting him where I would have drafted him, where I could still get him, 5th, 6th pick type of thing. I would still take him. I'm not too worried about it. Because even last year with the rib injuries, he still produced. Right. He still did really well. So he is the type of guy that can work through it. So I'm really not too worried about him. But more running back news. MJD charged with battery after knocking out a security guard with one punch, according to TMZ. What is your thought?
How short was this security guard? Usually those guys are huge. How does MJD punch anybody in the face? Isn't he like 5'7" or something like that?
My guess is he gets one of his entourage to just get down on his hands and knees, climbs up on his back, and just pops him.
Oh, but I can guarantee you when he punches somebody, that would hurt. And I guess as it was said here, with one punch, not too bad, MJD.
No, yeah. But what do you think? Possible suspension from the NFL coming? What do you think? You think that's going to happen?
They're going to let this play out and see what really happened. There's definitely a good chance if it's figured out, he really did punch somebody in the face, he's definitely going to be suspended.
Really? I think he's going to get away with it. I think he's the type of guy that hasn't really shown type of action in the past. So I think this is something the NFL lets go because I think eventually this gets settled somehow if it hasn't already, where it doesn't become major news. I think think about the Des Bryant when he supposedly said he slapped his mom or did slap his mom or whatever the hell happened with that. I think it's a similar situation where you didn't have that history before, so it just kind of slides. Yeah,
you're right. He is a guy that's been, by all accounts, a good citizen, a good kid in the league. But I don't know. I can see a one game here if it's proven that he definitely did knock out a security guard with a punch to the face. I think there's a chance there. That's some conduct that the NFL can't have. They may be putting their foot down if that really does prove to be true.
Here's the bigger question. Speaking of, going back to the Arian Foster workload thing, MJD has had a ton of workload as well, and that could have led to his injury last year.
Right, and that sounds like what you're almost a little worried about with Arian coming up here in the next year or possibly this year.
I think he's going to fall into that MJD type of issue with the leg injury, but do you think there's any chance that they maybe add, with this news with MJD, that they maybe add another vet to the backfield? They really don't have a good backup behind him? Do you think there's a chance they add a Michael Turner or an Ahmad Bradshaw? Personally, I think Bradshaw would be a perfect fit with an MJD type of guy. I think Turner's a little bit too slow and too much like MJD, size-wise. But what do you think? Do you think there's any chance they bring in a veteran running back that they, still out there?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I mean, there's some concern with a suspension possible. Although unlikely, it's definitely a possibility, something you want to make sure you're covering all bases on and get somebody there that you can trust if you need it for a game or two or whatever it may be if the suspension does happen. Bradshaw is a guy I like, and a guy who, if he doesn't have to really be the workhorse, I think can do really well. He's shown he can't quite handle the load on his own. But if he's a guy that's healthy and you can bring him into camp and he can show you that, he's a proven veteran. He knows what it takes to succeed in the NFL. If he can stay healthy for you, give you a few games, even be a change of pace guy. I like Ahmad Bradshaw. I think Michael Turner is done. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I can't see anybody signing him.
See, I think both guys find a place in the NFL somewhere. I think
Turner will, but I think he's done.
Honestly, I think Bradshaw ends up with the Steelers because he's already visited them, and I think that's inevitable. I think that's going to happen eventually. Turner, I don't know of a good landing spot for him yet, but I feel like he's going to find some sort of role somewhere. Obviously that's still up in the air. But, talking a little bit about, a potential MJD suspension, Isaiah Pead does get suspended for one game for violating the NFL policy and program for substance abuse. What do you think? Does this hurt him at all? Who do you have as the number one guy for St. Louis this year in the back?
I have Richardson, and my rankings will show you that. But this hurts Pete. Of course, he's a guy who fell behind Richardson throughout the season last year. I'm sure he was hoping to come in and get a chance to compete, and I'm sure the Rams organization was open to that for this year. I don't know, but I imagine they were. This kind of thing is just one more strike. You're going to be doing that kind of stuff if you're that close. If Richardson actually turned out to be a little bit better of a player they thought last year, why even trust this guy with the number one on the depth chart thing?
See, I think it's interesting because you and I both think Richardson is going to be the guy. And if you talk to most of the fantasy football community, they're pretty torn between Peed and Zach Stacy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing how, amongst all the analysts out there, everybody seems to have a different one of these guys, but nobody seems to have the majority chunk of the pie as to which guy it's going to be.
I think I'm definitely right, so are you. Although Richardson and Stacy could be interesting. Peed, I don't know.
I gotta tell you, though, I think, personally, like we said, I think it's going to be Richardson. Peed with the one-game suspension, I think it doesn't affect his value at all because it's one game. It's a throw-out game. Either he's going to be the guy or he's not. Mm-hmm. I don't think, when it comes down to training camp, the Rams are going to sit there and go, well, Pete's suspended for one game, so, maybe we make Richardson the guy for the year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think either he is or he isn't going to be the guy, so I think sitting out one game isn't going to affect his value all that much. It just comes down to who's going to be the guy out there. But more OTA news. Hakeem Nicks seems to be skipping the OTAs, and Coughlin doesn't seem to be too happy about it. He said that he's disappointed and said that at one point Nicks said that he was going to be there for OTAs, but then has since backed out. Do you think this has to do with his contract? What do you think is going on with Hakeem Nicks?
I have no idea. I would be 100% guessing. It's very disappointing, but that's pretty much what he's been for me, is just disappointing. I was so excited about him when he was young. You watch him play. He has all the tools, but it's starting to be just every year it's something new, whether it's injuries, now this. It could be a contract thing, but
they got contract issues too with Victor Cruz now. It's like, is Victor Cruz going to sign his tender? It's like, it is just a mess out there right now. I know you hate Nicks. You're not drafting Nicks high at all this year, are you?
No.
I still think I got him. I think I have him in the top 15 wide receivers. I still think he's got the talent. If he plays a full year, maybe he's the Matthew Stafford of wide receivers. He's another one of those guys that has the talent that if he played the whole year would be an elite level guy, but just never seems to make it all the way through the year. Really wish we could see it from 1 year out of him because it would be amazing.
Someday these guys mature. A lot of times it can happen, and the switch gets flipped on, and and they show you what they can do. I don't hate Nix by any means. As far as, like I said, he passes my eye test. You watch him play, and you know he can be a superstar. I don't know when he's going to put it all together. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to be the guy that misses that bandwagon, or it never happens, and I was right all along here. But just too many situations for me that makes me. If I'm going to have to take him as a top 15 receiver, I'm going to go with the guy that I think's right behind him or in front of him. I think a lot of times, just because too risky for me.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of risk reward, Monte Ball. John Elway is so high on him, which is good when you're the president of operations. I mean, he called him a draft gem, and that he reminded him a lot of Terrell Davis. Pretty high praise right there. I mean, Terrell Davis, a 2,000-yard runner one year. Monte Ball. I got to tell you, I'm not that I'm buying into him this year, but in Dynasty, I think I'm buying into him. So I want to get your opinion on this Dynasty trade that I made. 16-team league. It's a $300 salary cap league where, based on performance, the cap number goes up every year, goes down every year. Primarily, they only go up. I mean, to go down, you would have had to really have a bad year. But I had Chris Johnson, who was kind of killing me at a $63 cap. Realistically, I knew, all right, $63 next year, if he has a 1,000-yard, 6-touchdown year, he's going to cost me $75. He's really getting up there. I kind of need to move him while he has some value before, in a dynasty type league when they get too old and you can't deal a guy. His cap number is going to be so high I can't deal him.
Yep.
But I traded Chris Johnson in a third round pick in 2014, which again 16 teams. That's pretty low down there. And I got back Monte Ball at a $10 cap, Ronnie Hillman at a $6 cap, just because I wanted to have the backup in case something happened. And Darius Hayward-Bay at a $10 cap. What do you think of that deal? Lot to take in there because you got salary cap, you got dynasty value, you're
saving some huge money. With the amount of money that you save there, you can turn that into not just Monte Ball, Hillman, and Bay, but turn that around to something else that you can do with that extra money you've saved. Getting rid of the third round pick, I don't know if you had to do that. But again, I wasn't there, during these negotiations.
Third round pick in a 16-team league, you're talking.
Yeah, that's true.
40 picks into a rookie draft. It gets pretty thin, pretty quick.
I'm hearing a lot of good things about Ball. He's a guy that's slowly moving up for me. I'm big into watching the preseason and see what it all means. I want to see what he looks like in an NFL uniform, actually on the field. It's different when you're talking training camps, but. I like how you hedged your bets there too. You got Ronnie Hillman just in case.
And I already have Knowshon Moreno.
He's an explosive player.
Not that Knowshon Moreno's really anything, but I already had Knowshon Moreno too. So one way or another, I'm already guaranteed the Broncos' backfield.
Right.
Hopefully, they just don't split it up into 10 different guys, and I'm screwed. But
even Hayward Bay, he's a guy that I think the biggest problem with him is the expectations that were put on him by where he was drafted. He's not a terrible player by any means. He's got good size. He's got great speed. When you were picked, when was he picked? You have to help me on that. He was top 10,
2009,
top 15, top 10, top 15 player.
2009, I think he was number 7 overall.
Yeah.
He was taken ahead of Des Bryant, and that was like the big thing that year, I believe.
Right.
Here's the thing that I had with DHB. Believe it or not, as much as this looked like a trade for Monte Ball, it was more because I wanted to get Darius Hayward-Bay. Like, I knew, obviously he doesn't have the value that Ball has, but he was a key component to this for me for a bunch of reasons. If you've seen my T.Y. Hilton article, you know why I love the Colts passing game. I mean, Andrew Luck is a stud. He's an elite guy. Last year he proved in his first year what he can do. Think about, Dynasty League, think about a couple of years of growth with Andrew Luck and what he's going to be. It's not unreasonable to think he's going to put up Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type numbers during his career. So I think you got an elite level passer that has to throw the ball to somebody. Now, the other thing about this is Reggie Wayne is 33, 34 years old. So he's on his way out. If it's not after this year, it's after next year. So one way or another, he's out of there. somebody has to replace Reggie Wayne, and I think that could be Darius Hayward-Bay. He could be the new Reggie Wayne. He could be the guy that comes in for a year, learns the system, and then next year turns it on when he's the guy catching the ball from Andrew Luck. The first year with a new quarterback doesn't always work out. Look at Demaryius Thomas. In his first year with Tim Tebow, not really a whole lot going on. But then once he got another year into the system, learned the offense, really turned it on, and I think that's the chance with Darius Hayward-Bay. I think the big thing with him was 4 years in Oakland, 4 different offensive coordinators. When you keep going through offensive coordinators, you can't develop a rhythm with your quarterback. Speaking of which, Oakland's gone through their fair share of quarterbacks too. And you keep changing the quarterback and you keep changing the system, that's not going to allow the talent to show through. So, a bunch of things there. Being Wayne's replacement, maybe sticking it out with the same offensive coordinator. Having in a dynasty league, this could be great value.
Yeah, you're like you said, it's a dynasty. You really got to look to the future on those. You gave up a stud in CJ 2K. You saved a ton of money, and you got some real good potential there with Ball, and you like Hayward-Bay. So it's a good trade, I think, both ways.
If you're winning now, the CJ 2K part is obviously much better.
Yeah.
I really wanted him for this year because my team is very strong for this year.
Yeah.
16 teams, and I got Stafford, I got Jamal Charles, I got AJ Green, I got people like Deshaun Jackson who could break out this year. I got Justin Blackmon who could break out this year, and I still got a decent tight end in Rudolph. So I did have a chance to push for this year, and with CJ, it would have probably given me that push. But I'm also kind of playing a little bit for the future, too. I still got a few young guys on my team. I still got Giovanni Bernard. I still got Michael Floyd. I've still got E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith. So I'm still trying to build my young core of people while kind of, making my push till this year. And I think if Monte Ball is the Terrell Davis type guy that John Elway thinks he is, I could possibly still make that push this year. So I think it hurts me a little bit in the short term, but I still think I have a chance. All right, so moving on here. The Steelers say they want to change to an outside zone, one-cut blocking scheme. What do you take from that, Matt? You know a lot more about the blocking schemes than I do. What do you think this does for people like Le'Veon Bell?
I think it's perfect for Bell, for Dwyer, bigger guys who aren't the most nimble of feet. It's I think the perfect scheme for the way that those guys run. I don't think there's any reason here that they wouldn't think about this kind of a scheme, because like I said, the way that those guys run the ball, they're more of a one cut, put the head down, get upfield, and make those defensive backs, linebackers have to deal with it.
No one's going to confuse Le'Veon Bell for Barry Sanders back there.
Exactly. So I think this is a great idea for them. Not that they didn't, they performed last year in the running game at times, but this year, I think with the way these two guys run the ball, the ones that have the biggest inside track at the job, I think it's perfect, and really something that they should have gone to the last year and the year before with the style of running that Mendenhall even creates. This situation, I think, is perfect for them. It's exciting, but like I said, I got to see, like we talked about a few weeks ago, Dwyer, Bell, who's going to be the man. Obviously, they took Bell early.
I think it's Bell.
Yeah,
it's got to be Bell.
There's a real good chance, but I'd like to see how the season goes.
I say if they trusted in Dwyer, I think they waited a little. Could have waited a little while longer.
I agree.
I think it's
Bell. I liked Dwyer last year. I was hoping he'd get a shot, but.
And our this probably has absolutely no fantasy relevance in any year whatsoever, but in the biggest what the fuck moment of the last couple of weeks. Titus Young gets arrested twice in 15 hours.
Oh my god!
What is wrong with this guy?
Did you see the picture that was on the internet about him? After one of these arrests, he looks like what's that American jewelry and pawn and downtown Detroit.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Some of the guys that walk in there, that's what he looked like. He looked like. There's no way this guy has $1 million in a bank. Well, he probably doesn't.
He probably doesn't. No,
he definitely
doesn't.
Titus Young, never mind that statement. But it was. He just looked like he was a crackhead. It was sad looking at him. Like, are you kidding? This guy's an NFL football player.
He got arrested for DUI, gets his car impounded, and then later in the day tries to break into the impound to get his car out.
It's unreal.
Titus Young, what are you doing? Come on, guy.
Troy Vincent. He's involved with the Players Association. Reports were out there, why aren't they getting him some help? I guess the NFL they went to his inner circle of friends, family, trying to figure out, what's going on with Titus. We want to help him, and he pretty much refused it. So Brandon Marshall was talking about it a few weeks ago. I want to give him some help. There's outlets out there that Young could go to get help. He needs to realize he's a talented kid. He's young. He's got an amazing future ahead of him here. He's in the NFL making a lot of money. He needs to figure out what the hell he's doing. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Brandon Marshall's a good comparison there. I mean, Marshall had his problems too, but he overcame them. He realized he had an issue, and he overcame them. Titus Young, he has all the talent in the world, and he's just pissing it down the toilet. It's unreal how some of these guys can do this when given these opportunities. All right, so moving back to some more of these injuries, because we can't get enough of them in the OTAs. I mean, no one wants to hear the good stories of that guy made some good cuts in OTAs.
There's not really many good stories in
OTAs. That guy is playing two-hand touch football out there, and they're doing good. Tony Romo going to miss the rest of OTAs after getting a surgical procedure done to his back. He had his cyst removed. They're saying he should be fine and ready in time for camp. Anything on Tony Romo? I got nothing. I mean, it is what it is. It's whatever.
I mean, this isn't even a football-related injury. This is,
Yeah, it's just maintenance more than anything, I feel.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know we said,
It's a human being a human having a little bit of a situation, but it's not like he got hurt on a football field. It's not an injury that's going to affect him in any way. Maybe it's going to keep him healthier because he's not out there possibly spraining an ankle or a quad or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I just got done saying that Gronkowski, with a back surgery, it's never minor when stuff like that happens, but he's got plenty of time to heal. I think this is a non-issue.
Right.
Now, not an injury this year, but we find out about Calvin Johnson's injury last year, that he actually had 3 broken fingers last year. Still caught 122 passes for almost 2,000 yards. He is just a beast. I mean, he is just unreal. He's definitely the number 1 wide receiver. What do you think the chances are of him coming close this year to that type of yardage again?
Usually you want to say, the league's gonna make moves to stop it, but when
we've said that every year.
Calvin is just a different kind of human out there in the NFL. He should be playing 2 guard for some NFL team with his size. There's really nothing you can do on him. I mean, you can roll the coverages over the safeties, but the thing is if you got a quarterback with some nut, and Stafford certainly does, as far as throwing him the football, he's gonna either go up and catch it or knock it down. It's just he's incredible. He's incredible. He could go down as the best ever. I know it's early saying this, but physically, we've never seen anything better than this.
Yeah, he is just a beast. He is just unreal. I mean,
it's amazing. You're talking about a guy
2,000 yards receiving with 3 broken fingers.
Right? Unreal. Wide receiver. I tweeted about that. Wide receivers are. Fingers are pretty important for wide receivers. You would think. I guess not for Calvin. If you're that huge and your hands probably could wrap around my head. Maybe you don't need the fingers. You just.
That'd be like finding out that Adrian Peterson last year ran for his 2,000 yards on a broken foot. Yeah. It's unreal. It's like that's what he uses to play this position, and it didn't matter.
That would be like Adrian Peterson running for 2,000 yards right after he tore his ACL in Week 15 the year before. Oh wait, never mind, that did happen.
Yeah, that did happen. All right, so more things going on in the camps right now. The Dolphins have said there's an open competition for the starting running back job. Lamar Miller, Daniel Thomas, Mike Gillislee, and I say that one a little under my breath there. So who do you, I think we both have Lamar Miller as the guy. I mean, Daniel Thomas with the concussions.
Yeah.
I think that the boat's kind of sailed on that.
I like Thomas coming out of, I'm pretty sure it was Kansas State. He's a big guy, runs hard, but when you get the kind of concussions he does, it's not a thing that goes away. Unfortunately, concussions, they get worse.
Yeah, talk to Austin Collie.
Yeah, so when you're in a position where your main goal, everyone else's main goal is to crush you the 20, 30 times you might touch it, it's pretty tough to avoid not getting hit in the head. It's sad because I like him, but I think Miller is the one. I love Lamar Miller. I loved watching him play. 4th round draft pick a few years ago out of Miami, or last year out of Miami, and this year Mike Gillislee, he's actually out of Florida, so they got a little bit of Florida rivalry going on between the two of them there. He was a 5th-round pick. He's got some great speed. I think it's Lamar Miller, and I think the consensus is Lamar Miller, but they're saying it's an open competition. We'll see what happens. That's what you got to wait for the preseason for.
Yeah, I mean, I think open competition is just coach talk for, let's see what happens. But, I mean, I think it's Lamar Miller's job to lose, and I don't think that's a hidden thing. It's not a big secret in the NFL. Mike Gillisley, our good friend Ty Miller that writes for us. You can follow him at Ty_in_STL. He has a huge Mike Gillisley crush, and I love just picking on him for it. Check out his article on Blindside Football to read more about who he thinks is going to be the running back for the Dolphins this year. And give him a hard time on Twitter about his Mike Gillisley love for me, would you? It's just a big long running joke between me and him.
Maybe Mike's going to prove to be the genius of us all.
Yeah, I mean, Ty could be right, and Mike Gillisley could be the guy. All right, last but certainly not least, one of the things we wanted to go over, and I know, it's been a while since we've done a podcast, so we're a little late on this boat, and you've probably already heard all about it. But if you haven't, the hashtag FFHelpMaddie, just really get involved with that. Lad Davies, he's over at lateroundquarterback.com. He has a 3-year-old daughter, Maddie, who has type 1 diabetes. Basically causes her blood sugar levels to rise and fall to dangerous levels without any symptoms at all, which can definitely be very scary if you don't know what's going on. If all of a sudden she just has really, really low levels. So basically they've been trying to raise money to get a diabetic alert dog that would help detect the blood sugar levels. I guess the dog is so keen that it can actually pick up on slight senses to basically figure out what her blood sugar levels are and know when that they get to bad levels. I'm happy to say that the fantasy football community on Twitter really got together on this one. Really, helped get over $13,000 donated to Lad to help him buy this dog. They were able to buy the dog, but even with the dog, there's always going to be added expenses, food and stuff like that. So if you really want to help give to the cause, there's a bunch of different ways that you can. One of the funnest ways I think for a lot of us out there in fantasy football. Talk to Jim Day at FantasyTaz on Twitter. He's holding a bunch of FF Help Maddie leagues. Basically, it's a $50 buy-in league. $25 of your buy-in goes right to Lad Davies. The other $25 gets put into the pool of winnings at the end of the year. I personally am in a league. We're actually doing our draft right now, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I've also said I'm going to donate any of my winnings that I get to Lad to kind of help him out with everything. If you want to read more about the cause, you can at lateroundqb.com/Maddie, M-A-D-I. And if you want to mail some money to him, just go to send a check to P.O. Box 555 in Gonzales, Florida. Zip code is 32560, and make the checks payable to DAD for Diabetic Alert Dog for Maddie. Getting back to kind of the FF Help Maddie leagues. The Blindside football team, we've all kind of gotten together and decided that we're all going to do a league together. There's going to be a couple of entries that we're going to give out to some of our lucky fans. So if you want to be entered into, the drawing basically to get a free team to play along with us, just use the hashtag BlindsideHelpMaddie. That'll get you entered. And probably next podcast we're going to pull one winner. Try to start getting the league filled up here a little bit. But I gotta tell you, we've already started. We started actually, I think it was Sunday night, in the FF Help Maddie League 9 that I'm in, and I had the 11th pick overall, which I was pretty happy about because I kind of want the later picks in the first round because I think there's more value for my style of drafting, which is a couple of running backs in those first 2 rounds. So I had the 11th pick. Really disappointed. Trent Richardson went to the 10th pick overall. Couldn't believe he fell that low. I really wanted to get him. Can you believe that 10th pick overall in a PPR league?
That's
Trent
unfortunate.
Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, one pick away. You must have been.
I was pissed. Ray Rice went 9th pick overall. I couldn't believe Ray Rice fell to 9th. I was like, oh my god! If I just had the 9th or 10th pick, I'd be in heaven right now. I don't. Both those guys are gone. All the guys I want are gone. I want a running back because that's how I do it. I pick running backs.
What about, say you're sitting there, pick 7, 8. big run on running backs is already gone. And when are you taking Calvin Johnson?
That's my question. This had a big run on running backs. Johnson, I think, went 7th. In this league. I mean, it's a PPR league, so Johnson's still got huge value.
That's 122 receptions last year.
But I mean, it just I personally still have to go running back. So because I was very upset about all my guys that I would have targeted being gone. You know, McCoy was gone, Richardson, Rice, you know, the obvious guys, you know, the Fosters, the Petersons, the Charles. I just couldn't believe all my guys were gone. So I actually put it up to Twitter to let them pick my pick for me. And I said, you know, pick my guy for me. Is it Forte? Is it Morris? Is it MJD? Is it CJ2K? Who would you have taken, Matt? Would you have...
CJ2K.
Really?
Yeah.
I almost went with CJ2K. The Twitterverse told me Matt Forte, so I went Matt Forte.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited
about that. Those guys are all very close.
But then I gotta tell you, I kept saying to myself, all right, at the time I was thinking, all right, CJ2K or Alfred Morris, just because Alfred Morris is safer, even though he doesn't catch the passes. So I was thinking one of those two guys, and I even said to myself, on the wrap back around, I got the second pick in the second round, I'll take one of those two guys that is still there. On the wrap, Morris went, CJ2K was still there. Do you take CJ2K? Brandon Marshall's out there. Who do you take?
CJ, I like that. Yeah, CJ2K.
I have big expectations this year for CJ2K with the that revamped offensive line. You know, Levitre's there. They got Warmack. They spent a third-round pick on a center. They got an inexperienced quarterback, which is going to make him lean on the ground game more. And you know what? I put it up to Twitterverse, and I asked them, what do you guys think? What should I do? I'm going to listen to my fans. And they told me to take Brandon Marshall. You know, you're guaranteed 100 receptions. It is a PPR league. He is a dominant PPR guy.
Aren't the fans supposed to be looking to you for
I hear you, but you know what? See, here's the thing. I know who I want, but I want my fans to be involved. I want all the followers out there to let them help pick my team. You know, this is all for charity anyway. It's all going to Lad. Even if I win, the money's going to Lad. I'm just having fun with this league. So I went with Brandon Marshall, and I was actually kind of surprised because it actually kind of caused a wide receiver and tight end run to happen. I took Marshall, then immediately off the board, Jimmy Graham went, and then Rob Gronkowski, and then A.J. Green, and then Dez Bryant, and now we're kind of stuck at, you know, the next guy who has to pick and hasn't made a pick yet. But I thought it was kind of funny to see that this big run on wide receivers and tight ends go because of the PPR format. So surprisingly, we're now coming towards the end of the second round, and CJ's still there. And this is a slow draft that allows trades during the draft, and I'm almost considering trying to trade up back into the end of the second round to try to get CJ.
Wouldn't that be a huge start?
If I can get Forte, Chris Johnson, Brandon Marshall, that's real good. But I gotta ask you, I got the 11th pick in the third round. What do you think it's gonna take to move up into the end of the second? It's got to take a lot, right? I mean, I got to give up probably my third and fourth, and I would get back a second in like a 6th or 7th.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be worth it though if Johnson's still available.
You think
then
so?
You've got 2 stud running backs there. That's huge.
Well, see, my flip side of it is if I wait, you know, there's still MJD out there. There's still Chris Johnson. There's still Darren McFadden. There's still DeMarco Murray. There's still a lot of quality running backs out there. And if I can keep my third and fourth picks, I'm really hoping, and I hope people in this league aren't going to listen to this podcast between now and then, but I'm really hoping that a guy like Larry Fitzgerald is going to be there in the end of the third round, early fourth round, because I think that's going to be huge PPR value if I can get somebody like that in the third or fourth. So I'm kind of nervous about trading the third and fourth to get Chris Johnson, where if I can wait and get a DeMarco Murray, Darren McFadden, even a Darren Sproles type guy in that third round, and then get Fitzgerald early fourth, I think that might be the better value. What do you think?
I've never owned Darren Sproles. I don't know why. Just something about him.
The touches scare you because he doesn't get a workload, but he gets the red zone work. He gets the red zone work,
ways.
And it's a PPR league, and he's going to get 80 receptions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, I would like to move up if I could, and get
another guy. Actually, another guy I can throw into that running back mix. Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush is going to be another guy that's going to have a lot of receptions in a PPR league. As much as I hate,
he's not even close to that level.
As much as I hate Reggie Bush, as much as I hate him, he did finish the 13th and 14th best running back these last 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, his PPR value only has to go up with Matthew Stafford and all the check down passes and all the pass attempts. He's going to get, the receptions and could have Darren Sproles-like value. I mean, am I going to probably take him in the 3rd round? No, but probably somebody else will, which will cause one of those other running backs to fall a little bit more. I'm really battling with it about, do I stand pat and keep my 3rd and 4th round picks, or do I try to trade up for a Chris Johnson? Obviously, that's a big gamble to trade up for a Chris Johnson, but
like you said, it's all for a good cause.
it is. It's all in good fun. It really,
Big deal.
at the end of the day, it's not going to matter.
At the end of the day, though, you do want to win.
At the end of the day, all that matters is that I do hopefully win, and that extra money goes to Ladd. But yeah, I mean, I guess that pretty much wraps it up for us. We had a lot to go over. Actually, flew through it pretty quickly. You got anything else, Matt, before we go?
No, we'll be back next Tuesday. We're always looking for questions, so if you want to send any our way, Marcus, how do they do that?
Yep, just use hashtag BlindsidePod for your questions. Make sure you check out Matt on Twitter, at Matt Dugal. Go ahead and follow me, at Marcus Katkin. And I think we're going to leave you with, we're going to leave you with a little rap that we got about our podcast that we picked up this week. Nice little fun thing. Maybe we'll make it our new theme song. I don't know.
Let us know what you think.
You guys listen to it and let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Yo, check it, it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside, fantasy football podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, Some awesome people hosting Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining. Skinny or fat, short or tall, anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on